And Justice Jackson, just days ago, mentioned that she was in favor of a binding ethics code and described how the Supreme Court is not above any other court that already has this sort of code or other ethics regulations. Justice Kagan and Sotomayor have said similar things. What is the objection to a sort of a de minimis level having an ethics code for the justices? And what does that say about the temperament of the court for those who object?
Yeah, there is no real or credible objection to this. If you want to look at just three data points, every other federal judge other than the 9 Supreme Court justices is subject to review by their judicial peers for ethical misconduct and various forms of sanction, again, by their judicial peers. So there's no reason the Supreme Court shouldn't be treated similarly. Second, every state has its own Supreme Court. And every single state has solved the problem of how you investigate misconduct by Supreme Court justices, often by peers in the judiciary, sometimes by panels that even have private citizens on board. So there's nothing difficult about this. We're 50-0 in Supreme Courts at the state level having this solved. And the third piece is that the Supreme Court itself is already subject to review as to how legitimate its disclosure filings are, and it is reviewed by the Judicial Conference, which is made up of federal judges from the circuit courts of appeal and from the district courts. So the idea that they can't be overseen by lower court judges is already just plain not true. In fact, Justice Thomas has been investigated now twice by the Judicial Conference over his phony baloney disclosure efforts.
So this is an issue that has been ongoing with this court, at least, and a lot of their decisions have sort of not really mirrored what the public polls and the public perception of what is desired comes across. For example, of course, overturning Roe versus Wade, but there's a lot of voting access cases and things like that are before the court currently. I just want to pivot a little bit to most recently in Arizona, where the justices said they put on hold the idea a law that had said that birth certificates are required for voting registration. This is just one example I wanted to bring up of a number of cases that have been very controversial, to say the least, and it's not reflecting public opinion.
Yeah.
What is this one of the biggest issues, in general? The court is, of course, an unelected, it's an undemocratic institution. And
Yeah.
now, are they above the law, above regulation? Is this why there is such a momentum and an effort to sort of rein back, to put, in the past, that I guess didn't seem to be needed as much, to put some sort
Yeah.
of restraints and codes on a court that is doing a lot that's not reflecting what the public seems to want?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think three things converge into a very dangerous sort of Venn diagram for the court. One is that they're making decisions that nobody wants, and in doing so, they're changing well-established law. The Dobbs decision is a perfect example. Getting rid of the Chevron deference doctrine to administrative agencies is another one. These are doctrines that have been around for decades, and decades had been relied on. Reliance is a big deal in judicial decision making, and they just blew through all that. So you've got the violation of what the public wants. You've got the violation of longstanding norms, a lot of destruction of precedent and previous decisions. And then you've got this very peculiar personal situation of judges basically being provided lifestyles of the rich and famous by right-wing billionaires who, in the other part of their lives, when they're not funding the judicial gifts program, are heavily involved with groups that are out to influence the Supreme Court. These aren't just friends from college. These are people who are personally committed to the institutions that are trying to reshape the court. So the idea that there's no connection between the billionaire gifts program and the billionaire investment in these right-wing judicial influence groups is just nonsense. And you line all those three things up and it looks rotten.